Hey, friends, let's talk for a moment about China, pigs, and the future of American soybean production and why we must fundamentally rethink soybeans as an export crop here in the United States of America. What am I talking about? Well, let's start at the beginning. China, in case you didn't already know it, is the world's largest producer of pork. They're also the biggest consumer of pork. In fact, they almost export no pork. All of their pork they produce stays right there in China. 1.3 billion of Chinese residents over the last 25 years have enjoyed an economic expansion that's almost unheralded in the history of mankind. So what are we talking about? When you start making more money, what do? You eat better. Historically, that has meant when humans get more money, they put better food in their belly, and that usually equates to more animal protein. So the world's largest producer of pork, almost all that pork stays right there. They also import pork. Places like the United States send pork to China. But you know what more importantly we send? We send soybeans. Pigs have to be fed corn and soybeans as a protein source. So we've been sending a lot of soybeans over there. Historically, now before this whole trade spat and this disputes, we made about last year 4.25 billion bushels of soybeans. Half of those would have been exported under normal trade circumstances. Half of the U.S. soybean crop is exported. The other half stays here. Half of the exports that go all across the globe go to China. That's been historically. So in other words, 25% of the U.S. soybean crop historically has ended up in China, mostly to feed pigs. But that's going to change. This has nothing to do with trade spats. I know you've watched the evening news and they told you about Trump and the trade spats, and I'm not getting political. This is a real simple issue of supply, demand, consumption. China needs less soybeans to feed their hog herd because they're killing off their hog herd. Yes, you see, their population is declining, and they have not made that very official. And also, they've already gone through this huge phase of eating better, and they're not going to go double their pork consumption on the dinner plate in the next 25 years the way they already have. So China is actively trying to reduce their swine herd. My friend Todd Thurman, my partner with the Business of Ag Success Group, which you should join, by the way, for 2026, is an international swine consultant. And he tells me that in the year 2022, there were 44 million sows in the Chinese sow herd. It's already down to 40 million. They've called off almost 10% of the sows. Guess what? They're going to reduce by another 1 to 3 million the number of sows in China. Meaning when this is all done, they're going to have reduced their sow count by about 6 million. You want to put that in perspective? The entire U.S. sow herd is 6 million. China's going to reduce their number of pigs roughly by the number of hogs in the entire U.S. pig sector. It's not quite equal because we get about 28 weaned pigs per year per sow, and in China they're doing about 22. So you can do the math. But let's just talk about math and what this means. If you believe we're just one trade deal away, one tariff erasure away from bringing back this amazing demand for soybeans, if you kill off 6 million pigs, sows I should say, that's 22 piglets per sow, it ends up being about 132 million piglets that do not need fattened. Using some rough numbers of 200 pounds of soybean meal per animal, and I'm not a feed conversion expert, I'm using rough numbers, and I could be corrected, thank you. That amounts to about 15 million metric tons of soybeans that China no longer needs, and that's just for the amount of pigs that they are reducing the herd by. Does that make sense? So you might have heard back in October, China was going to buy 25 million metric tons per year. I'm telling you that you can make the case right here with my back of the envelope numbers that China could reduce their soybean consumption considerably just by the number of hogs that they no longer have. Because you know what dead sows don't do? And all the piglets that are not alive because the sow got killed, they don't eat soybean meal. 80% of a soybean is meal, 20% is oil. So the bulk of the weight of a soybean is going to meal, which goes to livestock production. I'm giving you these numbers because I know that we have this false hope that we're just one big trade deal away from all of a sudden soybeans are going to be profitable again. I'm telling you that we grew about 83 million acres of soybeans in the United States of America. We produced 4.25 billion bushels of soybeans this year in 2025, I should say. And we are not going to need those soybeans moving forward. China's not going to need those soybeans moving forward. Yes, Brazil is already continuing to ramp up their production, and they've already got the ties and the infrastructure, and we're facing a decline in demand because China is looking around and realizing they don't need to grow their pork industry. In fact, they are contracting it. So these are real issues that impact all of us in agriculture, and I'm giving you some numbers and some thought. I wish I had better news. I'm Damian Mason. I speak on stages all over North America and right here online about the world's most important industry, the business of agriculture. Today we're talking about China, about hogs, and about the fundamentals that are working against soybean production expansion. In fact, we should probably cut it back here in the United States of America moving forward. Thanks for tuning in.